Let's go over number 5, plus minus. So the problem says, given an array of integers, so we have an array of numbers, calculate the ratio. So we're going to calculate the ratio of something of its elements that are positive, negative, and zeros. So we want the ratios of positives, negatives, and zero in an integer array of integers. Print the decimal value of each fraction. So we want the decimal value on a new line with 6 places after the decimal. Note, this challenge introduces precision problems. The test cases are scaled to 6 decimal places, so we want our answers to have 6 decimal places, though answers with absolute error of up to 10 to the negative 4 are acceptable. Okay, so we have to get the ratios of positives, negatives, and zeros, and we have an array of integers. So in order for you to get ratios of something, it's whatever we want, number of whatever we want over total. So we want the ratio of positive, negative, and zero. And these are all over total. Total meaning total number of elements, or in this case, integers that we have. So if you look at our example, we have 5 elements, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our total is going to be 5. And as you can see, we have 2 ones, so 2 positive, 1 0, so 1 0, and 2 negatives. So our ratio is going to be 2 over 5, 2 over 5, and 1 over 5. And we want these results to be in decimals with 6 decimal places, 6 decimals. And the problem also says that it wants us to print them. So print result. And if you convert these numbers into decimals, these are the answers. So this is 2 over 5, 2 over 5, and this is 1 over 5. Okay, now function description, complete the plus minus function. So this is going to be the name of our function in the editor below. And we have only one parameter, which is an array of integers. And it wants us to print the ratios of positive, negative, and zero values in the array. Each value should be printed on a separate line with digits after the decimal. So we want 6 digits. The function should not return a value. So this problem doesn't want us to return anything. It just wants us to print the values. So we want console log, right? Because that's not print. And no return. You want this. So input format, the first line contains an integer and which is an array of integers, and second line contains n-spaced separated integers that describe n. So it's saying that we have n number of elements in our array, which is all gonna be integers. But important thing is that we want the ratios of positive, negative, and zero. And we don't want to return our solution, but we want to print them. So we want to use console log to print our solutions. So these are our constraints. Our output format, we want to print them, not return them, in 3 lines, which is going to have 6 decimals. Our first one is going to be positive, negative, and zeros. And these are our another sample question. So we have 6 elements. We have 1, 2, 3 positives. So 3 positives, 2 negatives, 2 negatives, and 1 0. And since we have 6 total, this is going to be positive, negative, and 0. So it's going to be 1 over 6, and it's going to be 2 over 6. Remember, we just have to convert these to decimals. Decimals with 6 places. And we just print these. If you guys find this helpful, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Thanks. Now let's code our solution. So first thing I'm gonna do is obviously declare a function which takes in an array of integers, and I'm going to make 3 variables. The first one is gonna be one that counts number of positives, and second one is gonna be one that counts number of negatives, and last one is obviously gonna be zeros. And I'm going to loop through my array of integers and then check if they're positive, negative, or 0 using conditionals. So let's make our for loop. Let I is equal to 0 because we want to start at the first item in our array, and I is gonna be less than array.length. So we want to loop through all the items and increment by 1. And now it's our if statement. So if array at index I, if our current item or element is greater than 0, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to increase positive by 1, and else if the array at index I is less than 0, which means it's going to be negative, right? I'm going to increment negative by 1, else I'm going to increase 0 by 1. So we're looping through all the elements in the array, and I'm checking if the number is positive or negative. And if it's not, it's obviously going to be 0, right? Because in the number line, we can only have positive, negative, and a 0. So we're gonna loop through all the numbers. We're gonna increase positive, negative, 0, depending on the number that's given. So for the first one is -4, right? So the first condition fails, and then it's gonna run this one, so it's gonna increase negative. Next one is 3, so this is gonna run, so it's gonna increase positive, and so on and so forth. And when we're done, remember, we don't want to return anything, we want to print our solution. And let's print our solution. So console log positive over, what's the total? Total is gonna be the length of the array, so array.length. And next one is going to be negative. Next one is going to be 0. So we have our solutions 0.5, 0.33333, and 0.16666. But we're not done here yet, because the question says to return answers with 6 decimal places, right? So what we want to do is we want to add basically more zeros to our first one, and then basically cut the length of the second and the third one, because you only want 6 decimals. And the way you can do that is by using a method, and it's called toFixed. And what this does is basically fixes the number or the length of the number that we get, and we do that for all the numbers. toFixed, and we want 6, right? And there we go. So we get our result 0.50000000. So that's 6, right? So we have 5 zeros. We have 5 zeros. Yep, this is it. So this is the solution that we get, and if you look, this is the output that we wanted. Now let's go over our code. So we have our function which takes in array of integers, and we made three variables, and these are gonna check or keep track of positives, negatives, and zeros. And what we're doing is we're looping through all the elements in our array, and we increment by 1 because we want each array or elements as we loop through our array, and we check these are our conditionals. Is the current number greater than 0? If it's greater than 0, it's positive, right? And if it is, we're going to increase positive by 1. If it's negative, if it's less than 0, we're going to increase negative by 1. Else, we're going to increase 0 by 1. Because if it's not positive and if it's not negative, it has to be 0. There is no other case. So first element is negative. So negative, I'll just plus negative and 0. First one is negative, so we increase that by 1. 3 is positive, 9 is negative, 0 is 0, and we have 4 and 1. So we have 3 positive, 2 negative, and 1 0. And we have how many numbers? We have a total of 6 numbers. 6. And if you convert these to decimals, you're going to get the results over here. And remember, we don't want to return our solution. That's not what the problem wanted us to do. We want to print them out. So we want console log, again, console log. And if we just console log our solution without using toFixed, it's going to just print that 0.5. And this one is going to print 0.33333, and it never ends. And this one is 0.1666666. It goes on forever. It never ends, right? So what we did was we used a method called toFixed, and this is going to fix the number of decimal places to 6 because we passed in 6 and we want 6. And if you do that, it gets the format that we want, and it automatically rounds up the last one. And there we go. I hope you guys learned something new. I hope that helped.